One of the best things you can do for your life and leadership today is listen to or watch this podcast. If you do not, or choose to ignore it due to its content, you will be making a huge mistake. Understanding this podcast today will lead you to have a very healthy understanding of our times and also help you flourish personally, as well as lead you to lead yourself, your family, your business, your church, or your organization in a much more productive way now and in the future. So stay tuned, buckle up, and get ready. This is Ronnie Floyd, and welcome to the 48th episode of our podcast.
Ronnie Floyd is a leader of leaders with a vision to change the world. The For Leaders podcast with Ronnie Floyd is committed to investing, inspiring, and influencing your life and leadership today. With a legacy of investing in thousands and thousands of leaders throughout the years who've led in multiple arenas of leadership. Now is the time, and today is the day for Ronnie Floyd to invest, inspire, and influence you in a serious and responsible way. So spread the news and share the For Leaders podcast with others around the world. Now, here's your host, Ronnie Floyd.
In just a moment, I will discuss a subject I have never addressed and share some information with you that you may not have heard or read about before. I promise you that today's podcast will be one of the most helpful podcasts I have done with you. Now, just a quick note from our past week. Gina and I had the privilege to spend 3 days in Orlando, Florida, for an annual conference we attend called the Mega Metro Conference for Pastors and Wives. I have now participated in this conference for 37 consecutive years. We prioritize it because God always blesses and encourages us when we gather for this event. In fact, we have provided leadership for this conference in 3 different years, in 3 different cities for and during my cross-church tenure. We are so thankful to Pastor Chris Bell and his wife Nan, who served this year by leading and designing the program for these various gatherings at the conference. Now, Pastor Chris is the lead pastor of the multi-campus 3 Circle Church based in beautiful Fairhope, Alabama. We're thankful for them, and we're thankful for you today in joining us for this podcast. Now let's get right into the heart of why we are gathering this week for this podcast with you. While conversations about various generations occur daily, they are usually about the younger generations, such as Generation Alpha, people who were born in 2013 to 2025, or Generation Z, born in 1997 all the way to 2012. And of course, the millennials, because they were born from 1981 to 1996. And while we must always be aware and committed to the next generations, because you've heard me talk about this again and again, we can never forget the others called the other generations. For example, Where would we be today without Generation X, born in 1965 all the way to 1980? And now they're living in their 40s and their 50s. And then we have the baby boomers generation, born anywhere from 1946 to 1964, now in their 60s to 80s. And furthermore, what about the silent generation, born in 1928 to 1945, now in their 80s and their 90s? And finally, we cannot forget the centenarians, people born in 1925 or earlier. And do you realize that there are some 100,000 plus people of these people who live to be 100 and above right now living in the United States? Now, recently, I tried to identify how many people who are living right now who are 70 years of age to 100 years old. Everything points back to the most recent census in the United States, which breaks down those from 65 to 100 years old. Now, this is the generation that I want to talk about today. The combination of the baby boomers, the silent generation, and the centenarians. As some do, I'm going to do the same today. There are various names that are attached to this unique age group in our society, but I'm going to call them as what I think is proper and right, and that would be called the legacy generation, which many do call it just that. So the title of my podcast today is The Legacy Generation, Still Shaping the Future Today. Now, I want to address three major areas in this podcast. I have worked very diligently in this podcast and for this podcast, and I'm going to try to give you substance, not simply just a little information. But why was I interested in this? And what really caught my attention about it? Well, I want to share with you just a couple of reasons for this, because it really intrigued me. And once I got into it, I just could not get out of it until I developed this podcast that I'm sharing with you today. You see, I began to notice how many people were being elected and hired for jobs at 65 years of age and older, and many who are still very active in their profession in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, and still doing it productively. For example, take President Donald Trump. He is 78 years of age. And if the Lord blesses him with health and safety, he will fulfill his term when he is 82 years of age. And any of you that listen to the news whatsoever at all, or you read various articles about the Trump presidency, you know from his first term, which as the 45th president of the United States, and then his now second term as the 47th president of the United States, that he works endlessly, that he has much energy, sleeps little, and he's 78 years of age, and most of his cabinet, if not all of them, would tell you, we cannot keep up with him. And even our former president, Joe Biden, he was elected and then he served his full term until he was 82 years of age. Now, back on the Trump presidency for a moment. We were introduced just months ago to a woman by the name of Susie Wiles. She's the White House Chief of Staff. Now, listen, she's the first female who has ever served as the Chief of Staff of the White House. And she is 67 years of age. Do you know, and did you know, that 10% of the Fortune 500 CEOs are 65 years and older? For example, Warren E. Buffett, he's 93 years old, one of the wealthiest men in the world, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. Robert S. Penske, 87 years old, CEO of Penske Automotive Group. Robert Greenberg, 84 years of age. He's still the CEO of Skechers. I could go on and I could read other names that maybe you would not really recognize, but there are many of them. But let's jump out of the business world and the corporate world for a moment, and let's jump into the athletic world. Just think. Pete Carroll, who has already won one Super Bowl and some national championships as a college coach, at 73 years of age, he was just hired as the head football coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. What an amazing thing. And then you look at the franchise of the Kansas City Chiefs, who is led now as the head football coach by Andy Reid. Andy Reid is 66 years of age. He's already won 3 Super Bowls, and he almost won the one that just concluded in January. Then think about what happened when one of the NFL's greatest coaches decided to go into college football. Bill Belichick, hired at 72 years of age as the head football coach of the University of North Carolina. And then you jump into the ministry world. Think about the influence and the preaching of men like David Jeremiah and John Hagee. These 2 men are 84 years of age and still involved actively and authoritatively and humbly in the ministry of the gospel, pastoring, caring for people, preaching with passion and with vision. John MacArthur, who obviously has authored many books, including the MacArthur Study Bible and its notes. And many of you are familiar with Dr. John MacArthur, a gifted scholar and pastor. MacArthur is 85 years of age and still pastoring his church. And I've talked time to time over and about my friend by the name of Dr. R.T. Kendall, former pastor of Westminster Chapel. He left that church at 65 years of age and has since that time has traveled the world preaching the gospel. And he still does it to this day at 89 years of age, preaching globally everywhere. Now listen, the list goes on and on and on the persons and the professions of people who are a part of this legacy generation who are making a major difference with their lives. That has caught my attention. And there's another reason it really caught my attention, is that this generation of people 65 years of age and older is most often forgotten. Did you hear me? Most often, this generation is forgotten, and they are treated like they belong on the shelf now that they are 65 years of age or older. Basically deemed not relevant at times and unable to contribute. Now listen, this is absolutely ridiculous and completely inaccurate. It's inaccurate in every way. And the only thing that would ever make anyone out here believe that would be pride and arrogance. But I tell you what, humility and teachability will always help you to understand that every person, regardless of their age or stage or location in life, they can bring value in an enormous way. You see, when you just listen to some of the stuff I've talked about already, and I got a lot more to share, the legacy generation, they're still shaping the future today. Still today, they are shaping the future. Now, I want to move into a second matter that I want to share with you, and this is the information that also really, quite honestly, astounded me when I learned about it, and I learned about it on my own. And it's some facts that I put together about the legacy generation. This age group that is 65 years of age and older. What are some facts? I want to share with you 9 essential demographic facts about the legacy generation that each person, regardless of age or leadership position, listen, you need to understand and please do not ignore. The first fact is simply a demographic fact. There are some 340 million people living in the United States of America in 2025. Fact number 2, 62 to 63 million of these people are 65 years of age and older. Did you hear that? 62 to 63 million of the 340 million Americans are 65 years of age and older. This is good news. It should be good news for you if you are 40 years of age today, because guess what? 25 years from now, which will be in about a blink or two, you will wake up and you will be 65 years of age. Well, right now, there's 62 to 63 million of these people living in the world today. Or excuse me, in America today. Now, in the 2020 census in the United States, there were 56 million people who were 65 years of age and older, which was 1/6 of the population in America at that time. But understand, that was 5 years ago. Number 4 fact is this. The projection in 2030 is that over 62 million Americans will be over 65 years of age and older. This will become, listen to this will become 1/5 of the American population, or 20% of the population. So I want you to notice and I want you to understand and to grasp that of all people living in America today, the people who are from 65 years of age and older, all the way to the centenarians, that they are now past 100, that 20% of those people, 1/5 of those people are that age. Now let me blow your mind with another piece of information. It's fact number 5. In the 10-year period of time from 2020 to 2030, those who are 65 years of age and older have gone from 56 to 62 million Americans. In other words, what's happened and will happen is that it will no longer be 1/6 of America, but it will become 1/5 of the American population. That's pretty extraordinary. Now, let me give you some more facts. Do you realize the sixth fact would be this? In the year 2050, which is only 25 years from now, when some of you are turning 65, but in 2050, 88 million Americans will be 65 years of age and older, and will go from being 20% of the population to 22% of the American population. This is extraordinary. This is unprecedented in our time in American life. People are living longer, people are living healthier and more productive lives, and that should encourage every one of you today, whether you are a Gen Z, whether you're a millennial, whether you're a Generation X, or even if you're a part of the legacy generation. You need to understand that even this next fact is extraordinary. The seventh fact is in 2024, over 101,000 Americans were 100 years of age or older. Hey, that's worth a clap, don't you think? Over 101 Americans were 100 years of age or older. And did you know that the next fact I want to share with you is that by the year 2030, over 130,000 Americans will be 100 years of age and older. Now, the ninth fact would be this, and I want you to grab a hold of this. By 2050, that's 25 years from now, by 2050, over 423,000 to 600,000 Americans will be 100 years of age and older, which is quadrupled in 25 years. Oh, listen, all of this is extraordinary and astonishing news. I want you to listen carefully. Any leader, any organization, any business, any team, any ministry, any church, or any government that ignores these dynamic facts about the legacy generation will limit their influence, depth, breadth, growth, and resources. I would encourage you not to do that. Now, interestingly, organizations always want to ensure they are relevant and acceptable to younger generations. Like there's no other generation in the room but them. And listen, I'm not saying that that is completely wrong. As you have heard me say, I have written about it. I have just continually in my life emphasized the importance of this, but never to the denial of the other generations. But we must be sensitive to those younger generations, and rightfully so. However, listen carefully. Don't make the mistake of what I'm about to address. You see, at the same time, simultaneously, while being sensitive to the younger generations, you must better understand that you must be relevant and acceptable at the same time to the legacy generation. Soon to be, listen to this, 22% of the American population. Furthermore, I really believe this, that any leader, organization, business, team, ministry, church, or government that recognizes the legacy generation's leadership, their depth, their wisdom, their resources, their influence, will open wide doors of opportunity and unlimited growth. Now, all of that leads us to this third major area that I want to address today. The legacy generation, it is still shaping the future. This is big time. Still shaping the future. I mean, you take the baby boom generation, which has continually shaped the future from the time they were born. It so changed America in so many ways. And that is still true today, especially when adding together those that were even before the baby boom generation. Let's think about the biblical perspective of all this for a moment. Just a couple of scriptures to remind us of these things. Job chapter 12, verse 12 says, "Wisdom is with the aged, and understanding in length of days." A person's experience and age most often bring wisdom and understanding. I say this often. There are just some things you will never know or understand until you're 50 and older. And if you're not 50, don't be stressed about that. Listen, you're going to get there if the Lord gives you the years. And there's just some things that are going to start happening to you, going to be apparent to you. You're going to be thinking differently. There are going to be areas that you're going to find yourself maturing in that maybe you look back and you say, man, I wasn't very mature then. That happens to all of us. And prayerfully, God can use all of it in our lives. But all of us would do well to remember what Job wrote in his book, that wisdom is with the aged, and understanding happens in the length of your days. And then I'm reminded of Psalm 145, verse 4. One generation shall commend your works to another, and shall declare your mighty acts. We need to understand today that one generation will proclaim and testify of God's work and mighty acts to other generations, commending God to them, commending God's power to them, and God's work to them. And we see this throughout the Holy Scripture. Now, as we move toward wrapping all this up for the podcast, I really want to center in by giving you 6 thoughts for you to consider about the legacy generation. My first thought is this: the legacy generation has and is still shaping the future. They are living longer. That should encourage all of you, regardless of what age you are. They are leading wiser lives because they know more. And they are contributing more to the future than anyone before them. Amazing. You see, the legacy generation does not need to be looked at as, well, they're just a part of the past. But the legacy generation is a part of the future. They're alive and healthy, many of them blessed with productive lives, even way past what many have ever experienced. The legacy generation is strong, and they're relevant. If you don't believe that, don't ignore the data. The data's real. They're involved in all sorts of things. Yes, many of them may no longer be in their original jobs, but they're in new careers. They're still making money. They're still active. They're still productive. If you think everybody who is 65 years of age gets on a bus and goes look at leaves and travels the world, that's not the facts of life in today's America. I'm not sure it ever was, but I know it's not the facts today. The legacy generation has and is still shaping the future. Let me give you a second thought. The legacy generation brings resiliency to the nation and to the world. Now think about this. We're talking about people who are 65 years of age all the way to just past 100 years. Many of them, all of them, lived through significant global events, but not all the same events, because we're talking about 35 to 45 or whatever it may be years of age in difference. Some lived through the Depression. Some lived through World War II. And many lived through multiple wars since then. This group has lived through the days of the civil rights movement, technological revolution that is still happening today. They've been through the economic ups and downs of our nation, as well as the political uncertainty. Furthermore, they've gone through societal and moral revolutions. They've even gone now through a global pandemic. And now they have weathered woke ideologies, things that they have never thought of or would ever even be discussed anywhere in American life. But this legacy generations, they're resilient. They come back again and again. When we talk about the legacy generation being resilient, we're talking about a generation of people that continually bounce back. They recover quickly. They grow stronger. And now they have persevered through decades of change and decades of uncertainty. Oh, listen, the legacy generation, they are still shaping the future, and they are bringing resiliency to the nation and the world. A third thought, the legacy generation brings leadership, wisdom, experience, faithfulness, and resources to the future. You say, well, I don't know what anybody can bring value to, because we have in our mind that, they're sitting on the front porch and they're rocking in a chair. I mean, that is so crazy. I mean, that is so out of touch with today's world. The legacy generation brings leadership, wisdom, experience, faithfulness, and resources to the future. This generation, listen to this, they have been tested and they have endured the fires and the trials of life. And when you walk through the trials and the fires of life, it offers wisdom, experience, faithfulness, and resources, and can still step into strategic moments and provide strategic leadership when given the opportunity. You see, a lot of these people in the legacy generation, they've even gone through tremendous sorrow, the loss of loved ones, even their spouse, perhaps, or their children, or their moms or their dads. They've been through a lot. They may have gone through the ups and downs in career, all the way to the ups and downs of the economy. They may have gone from being encumbered in debt to complete freedom of debt. All I'm saying to you is this today. The legacy generation brings leadership and wisdom and experience and faithfulness and resources to the future that we are all living in right now and experiencing. But number 4, the legacy generation can serve as mentors and encouragers to others. As mentors and encouragers to others. With many younger generations growing up in blended families and even many in fatherless homes, the legacy generation can mentor and can encourage other generations. I think this is one of the most valuable things that can happen regardless of someone's health, regardless of someone's ability in their 80s or their 90s or whatever age they may be. You see, there is value when we spend time with all generations. We learn things that we could only learn from them. Whether we're sitting down with a Gen Z and the way they think, all the way to a person in their 90s and the way they think. It doesn't mean one is right, one is wrong. It means that they are very different and they see things differently. But when they talk together, especially when they have the commonality of the Bible and Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, they can learn from one another. And then I want you to understand a fifth thing. The legacy generation should be a voice that is listened to by others. The legacy generation should not be treated like trophies of the past or irrelevant obstacles to the future. If you think that, they feel that. And if they feel that, they're never going to be on your team. They're never going to believe in you. They're going to question you in every way, just as you would if they say the same thing about you. You see, the legacy generation should be called upon for perspective in the present. And they need to be seen as vital players for the future. Now, to our knowledge, perhaps they do die before you if you're in your 30s. But you don't know that. They've outlived many people who have died young. So it's not a matter of who will die first. Oh, the realities would be that perhaps when you're older, you have lesser time, but not always in God's timetable. So we need to look at every generation as vital players, including the legacy generation as vital players for the future. And the legacy generation can add to important roundtables on leadership. They can contribute to conferences and seminars via speaking or interviews or whatever it may be. They can bring testimony of significant accomplishments of the past that can many times bring tremendous hope and faith for the future. And you know what? You better not forget what I'm about to say. The legacy generation can contribute to intergenerational engagement and conversation, and they can live and personify the purposes that God has given them in their lives that will also help others. And then the sixth would be this thought. The legacy generation can serve others because they can. They can provide leadership. They can and they are. They can give generously. Have you thought about that lately? They can encourage everyone, and they can pray for others continually. So the legacy generation, sure, they can serve others, they can provide leadership, give generously, encourage everyone, and pray for others continually. This generation has so much to give, and they should give it again and again and again. But you need to call upon them to do so. There's a conclusion that I come to today. You see, the longer people live and the healthier they are physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, the more we will see what we read about in the 14th chapter of the book of Joshua about a man named Caleb. Many of you know the story of Caleb. Caleb was one of the 2 spies that Moses sent into the promised land. It was he and Joshua that said, we need to enter into the promised land immediately and defeat the enemies. But there were 10 others that were also spies, and they came back and they told Moses, no, we can't do it. They took a vote, and Moses and Joshua and Caleb lost the vote. And so all the other 10 ended up dying in the wilderness. But when it came time for them to enter the promised land 45 years later, Joshua and Caleb both entered the promised land. But now in this moment of time in Caleb's life, he said, listen, now that we're back here, we're here to the promised land. Now we're in it. I've been helping these other people possess the land. I'm ready for my own mountain. Give me this mountain, he said in Joshua 14:12. And the Bible says he possessed the land. He fought for the land. And God gave him the promise. And he possessed it. You know, Caleb was an interesting brother. He totally gave himself to the Lord, the Bible said again and again and again. It's a powerful story about his life. And you know what? Caleb lived even past the days of Joshua, and Joshua died at 110 years of age. Now, why do I say all that to us? To encourage all of us, whoever you are and whatever age you are. You see, this should tell us that we should stop defining what people can and cannot do. All of this is in God's hands and is determined person by person. Caleb's spirit, his spirit, I call it the spirit of Caleb. It's alive in the legacy generation. Oh, it may not be alive in all of the generation. There may be some who have lost that spirit, some who are plagued with challenges and disease and physical challenges, but at the same time, there are millions of others who have that spirit of Caleb. But regardless if you're 35 or you are 85, you need the spirit of Caleb. And I've seen as many people with the spirit of Caleb who are in the legacy generation as I have seen in their 30s, in their 35 or 40. You see, the legacy generation has many with the spirit of Caleb. Now, my final words today come to the legacy generation and then to the generations behind the legacy generation. First of all, to the legacy generation. To all of you 65 and above, be resilient. Bounce back. Add value by speaking and add value through consultation and with relationships. Serve others. Lead when the timing is right. And mentor others when the opportunity comes. Encourage all. And you know what? Always give generously. You can't take it with you. Always give generously. The legacy generation should always give generously. And my final words to the generations behind the legacy generation, which is a lot of generations, 64 and below. I want to urge you, listen to their voices. Listen to the voices of the legacy generation. Value the perspective of the legacy generation. Mobilize the persons and the gifts of the legacy generations. Use them and always honor those who have gone before you. Because you know what? Doesn't matter whether you're a Gen Z or you're a legacy generation member. We should always honor the generations that have gone before us, and we stand on their shoulders of all that have gone before us. So be encouraged today. This should mean that your organization, your ministry, your church, your agency, your business, whatever it is you do in your profession, you have so much more potential than you've ever imagined before. because you have 20% of the American population that can come alongside of you and help you create vision, purpose, life, dynamic, resources, and help you accomplish what you believe God has put in your heart. But to all of us, from all generations, let's remember this. The legacy generation is still shaping the future today. This podcast should be heard by people all over America and the world. This podcast episode could be played, could be seen by your department, by your group that you're in charge of, fellow people around the country and the world who need to grasp what's really happening with the demographics today. And you should rejoice over this, because that means you have a greater opportunity in the future than ever to live longer, take care of yourself, live healthy lives, make the right choices, put yourself in a place to win. And perhaps God will bless you with years and years of life, like many of those who are way older than me in the legacy generation. But we thank God for every day we have, because only God gives those days to your life and to my life. But regardless of the years that we are given on this earth, we need to live those years with life in every way.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information on Ronnie Floyd, go to 4leaders.com. We'll see you next time.